everything, the August episode. I am Danny Bedrosian. Here with me always is Carl Cerny, and we are here again at Moose Magnificat Radio, also known as Alcom, in beautiful Tallahassee, Florida. The August episode, really happy to say that we are back doing regular episodes, although not everything is cleared up. We are back in the studio, back making episodes of Danny on Everything on the regular, so really happy to be doing this again on the regular. And we got a great episode today. We have my good friend Travis Thigpen of Sith and Synth fame, who's going to be discussing a couple of new nerdy prospects, as we call it, a couple new nerdy prospects with me, some old yet new things that you're just gonna have to check out this episode and see what we're gonna talk about. But before we do that, I wanted to announce a number of shows that I have coming up at the Chop House on the Bricks in scenic downtown Thomasville on Broad Street in Thomasville, Georgia. I will be there on August 20th and 21st, October 1st and 2nd, and October 8th and 9th from 6 to 9 p.m. Those are Fridays and Saturdays, playing classical piano music. Some amazing food there, great ambiance, so check that out at Chop House on the Bricks. I'm also returning to my gig at the Over Under in Tallahassee, Florida. It's a fantastic bar, restaurant, club, and I will be there on August 14th, August 28th, September 11th, and September 25th. And, of course, not returning to full-on touring yet, but George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, we are returning to occasional shows here and there. We did, as I told you before, some great sold-out shows at Central Park and in New Haven, Connecticut. We just recently celebrated George Clinton's 80th birthday party in Los Angeles. All kinds of folks were there. Snoop Dogg, Keisha, all of Fishbone was there, Reggie Hudlin, all kinds of Attorney Benjamin Crump, all kinds of great, fantastic folks were there, as well as members of the band. And we brought the good Dr. Funkenstein into his octogenarianism the right way with a fantastic party in LA. And I'm happy to say we'll be returning to New York on August the 20th, a big hip-hop festival in Queens that we are headlining. For all my New York fans or P-Funk fans who are traveling from very far distances, to be there, they are requiring COVID tests mandatorily for all fans who are coming to the shows, as well as us, the band. We all have to have COVID tests or be vaccinated right away. So all fans going to those shows, going to that show in New York, make sure of that. Also coming up, we are playing, I'm just going to give the cities. You can find out the details as they come. But September 3rd, we will be in Atlanta. These are P-Funk dates. September 3rd in Atlanta, September 4th in Fort Wayne, Indiana, September 5th in Evanston, Illinois, and then this amazing hip-hop and soul festival in Los Angeles on December 18th. We also have European dates coming up for May of next year. As it gets closer to that, I'll tell you guys about that, mostly in the UK, and hopefully they do not get canceled for the third year in a row. But as of now, those are scheduled for May of 2022 in the UK and Northern Ireland, and probably some other spots in Europe as well. Still selling the brand new album with the Brothers Nalbandian. This is Garmir Caramel, and it's been selling really, really well, and you guys can get it by sending $25 domestic or $35 international to my PayPal at info@dannybedrosian.com. or Cash App at $Daniel Bedrosian, or Venmo at Daniel Bedrosian. And if you get it with the comic book, it's only $40. And a lot of folks have been doing the double thing. They've been getting the comic and the album. Saves you about $5 on each product. Comic book is selling for the same thing, $25 or $35. And you can get it from the same places. PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo. We'll talk a touch about the comic book later in the next segment, but the song from this album that we're going to play next is actually my favorite on the album. It's called Hydrogen Primate, and it was written and produced and played by the brothers Nalbandian and myself, and I sang lead and all the backup vocals on it as well. And really proud of this album. This has been probably sonically my best album yet. It's just very well mastered, very well mixed, and it's been getting rave reviews the world over, so really proud of that. And then, you know, you support me, and you also support these amazing musicians in the Republic of Armenia when you buy the album. So pick that up, and without further ado, we're going to play another track for you guys. It's called Hydrogen Primate. Check it out. From Garmir Caramel, you are experiencing Danny on Everything.
Yeah, baby. Monkey see, monkey do, kind of monkey are you? Monkey see, monkey do, what kind of monkey are you? You make me ape around. You know one research for the ultimate banana. I was flicking dumb in the general direction. I caught your eye and I made you wanna say goodbye to R02. That mean Ozu, even who was so mean to you on so many general occasions. I wanted to grab you up and take you somewhere new, like a canopy just for two. You're high, monkey see, monkey do. What kind of monkey are you? Always let me see it. Monkey see, monkey do. What kind of monkey are you? You look like you grew. Let me see what's good. I love you. I know that I already love you. I wanna primate with you. And I know if I clean every little bug out of your hair, I hope you don't really care. Cause it means that I love everything about you. Monkey see, monkey do. What kind of monkey are you? Lord mama, yeah. Monkey see, monkey do. What kind of monkey are you? I never saw no one else but you. I never saw no one else but you. Lord, monkey see, monkey do. Kind of money are you? What kind of monkey are you? Monkey see, monkey do. What kind of monkey are you?
We are back. Danny on Everything. You just heard Hydrogen Primate from the new album Garmir Caramel by myself and the brothers Nalbandian. You can get this right now from my pay sites, as I told you guys before, and it is coming out digitally this week for those who must get it on Spotify, iTunes, etc. So check that out. And we have Mr. Travis Thigpen back on the show. First time in a while. Travis, thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me. It's been a really long time since we've been here.
It's been a minute. We usually do some Star Wars talk. Sometimes we talk comics. This time we're gonna do some comics. We're gonna do a little something different though today. We had discussed what we wanted to discuss the other night, and I was asking, had you seen the new Masters of the Universe Revelation TV show cartoon? Anchored by Mr. Kevin Smith on Netflix. And so we decided we were going to talk about this, just give a little introduction, a little background on my affiliation with the He-Man brand. Before I was into comics, before I was into P-Funk, before I was even really into Star Wars, I was into He-Man. The toys and the mini comics first, and then the cartoon. And they came, I think they started in 83 and lasted till about 87, 88, the toys. And the show was somewhere in the middle there, like 85 to 87 or something.
So it wasn't a 90s show?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it was all 80s. Yeah. And in the time that they were around, they were by far the best-selling, fastest-selling toy brand ever in that moment.
Yeah, broke records. Right?
Yeah, broke records. Billions of sales, crazy things. And the toys were really what sold me. I remember seeing the first time I saw the toy, the first one I bought was Zodak, who was from the first line, first season or series, whatever they call it. And he had started out as a bad guy with the toys, and they made him a good guy in the cartoon, which always confused me. But he was my first one. And then I think I got the original He-Man not too long after that, and then just started collecting play sets,
Castle Grayskull, right? Did you have that?
I had Snake Mountain.
Oh, Snake Mountain.
Yeah,
okay.
with like the microphone that you talk, And I had like Moss Man. I had Battle Cat.
See, I forgot about Moss Man until the show. He completely just like left my brain.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, man, Moss Man.
It smelled like a Christmas tree.
Right.
They should have called it Christmas tree, man.
Little juniper.
Yeah. Car refreshment. What do they call those things? Air freshers?
Air fresheners. Car refreshment. He literally said car refreshment. Just want to point that out.
And I had all kinds. I had Extendar, the guy who like his neck and his arms came out. I had all the Snake Men. I loved the Snake Men. I had a lot. It was the toy that I collected the most of by far. And
now I feel dumb. I had the WWF like ring and like all the guys. I had Jake the Snake and all.
Oh yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yep. No, a lot of my friends like the wrestling guys, and they also had. Remember the little wrestling men?
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah.
Those were really big. It was all the same era, and this was right before
when toys were cool.
When toys were cool, exactly. And this was like right before the Ninja Turtles toys too. So I went from like these to Ninja Turtles right after it. But
you would know this since you brought that up. Which one has sold more all time?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's a good question.
Yeah, because they were both huge, massively huge.
It's hard to say. I think maybe first run, I'd say Masters of the Universe, because there's multiple runs of both. Yeah. So there's like the Masters of the Universe original.
And Turtles have continued on where He-Man kind of
stopped,
fizzled
came
out
back,
a little bit.
Stopped, came back. Yeah.
Okay.
It had two
I'd probably
revivals.
think of Turtles.
Maybe. Yeah, probably. I do know this, that Ninja Turtles is the best-selling independent franchise of all time. But He-Man was a Mattel corporate thing, so I don't know. I'm not really sure. But loved the cartoon as a kid. It was a little kitschy, a little goofy. When I was a kid, I remember thinking it was so serious. Like, it was so, like, this is so big,
Well, that's like G.I. Joe, too. And then you rewatch it as an adult, you're like, oh, my gosh.
What is going on? Yeah.
This is terrible.
And then, didn't like the movie. Wasn't down with the movie
The
at
Dolph
the time.
movie?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Didn't like the movie.
I forced people to rewatch it, 2 weeks ago.
It's actually better on the rewatch. Yeah. So... that's an interesting thing about
Young Courtney Cox.
My man who played Skeletor, you know who that is?
Yeah, he's a beast.
It's
Leo.
It's
Frank.
Count Dooku. Count Dooku is the guy who played Skeletor. I think. I'm pretty sure.
No,
are you sure?
Yeah, it's Frank.
Yeah, Frank. What's his name?
Leah.
Christopher Lee.
It's not Christopher.
It's not Christopher Lee. Okay. Well, whoever it was, he's amazing.
No, he's like a Shakespearean.
Yeah, he was
actor.
he was incredible as Skeletor.
An animal.
Yeah. Okay, and then
he's wearing a cloth like mask and everything, and he makes that look good.
He made the whole thing. He made the movie to me.
Yeah, if he wasn't in it, that movie would have been
trash,
just atrocious.
Yeah.
Which it was, but
Yeah, it would have been Labyrinth without David Bowie.
Right. Nailed
it. Then they brought back a second cartoon where He-Man was in space. Do you remember this? Late 80s. It was 89. It was the brand was sold. The cartoon brand was sold to a Korean company, so it looked kind of like anime a little bit. He-Man was way skinnier. He was like slighter, and he was in space fighting Skeletor. All the bad guys were different. There was a guy with an eye. This was like the 89 cartoon. It was terrible.
Yeah, so they
He-Man and the New Masters of the Universe is what it was called. It was so bad. They took it to space. There was no more Eternia. There was no more fantasy, barbarian,
I feel like I did because I watched a Netflix something like way before this, like years ago. Like, and I feel like that might have been that show or something.
It's so bad. But then in 2000, they put out what they call the 2000X line, the 2000X series. Okay. And that's a series that you can still get now on DVD. You can order it. You can find it. It plays a lot. It was actually very popular. It
might have been what I was just talking about.
It was really popular with the diehard fans. And it was also an East Asian company that did it, but they followed the original story.
Art style.
Yeah, the original art. Well, the original arc.
Okay.
So like Skeletor, He-Man, Beastman, Man-at-Arms, Castle Grayskull, the Sorceress, all those characters were very much a part of the 2000X line. It was very big with the fans. It didn't do anything with kids, and so it kind of disappeared after, I want to say 1 or 2 seasons. But there was a bunch of toys that came out of that, put together by the Four Horsemen Toy Company, who was like a really big kind of indie toy company out of New Jersey that just made these really articulate figures that sold for big money. And that
kind of like the Black Series now or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. And then it spawned Mattel to do the 2000X, to do their own with these Four Horsemen guys, to bring them on and have them do a new line of He-Man toys. And they did like every character that's ever been in the, even ones that they didn't make toys of in the day. And even like weird, like the Wonder Bread He-Man, like the one that was sold with Wonder Bread, we had like a black outfit instead of gray, and he had brown hair instead of blonde. Like they remade that, and they remade like all these kind of weird underground nerdy toys for adults. And this guy Spectre, who does the Spectre Creative podcast, he's like the ultimate He-Man nerd. He was also the brand manager of Mattel's 2000X line. So he was the one choosing what kind of toys they should make, doing the tooling, and like deciding how they were going to package it, market it, brand it.
No, his loincloth is brown.
Exactly. And so this thing went through a few phases. By the time like, they were selling these things at Comic-Con, making a ton of money, but outside the Comic-Con audience, it really wasn't kids weren't gravitating towards it. So it's like it has grown with its audience, kind of like Star Wars, I guess, probably. Yeah. Where comic books have managed to grow and keep the young audience in some ways, I think Star Wars and He-Man have just more grown. There's some younger viewers, but mostly like the kids of people who watch.
There's a lot of Rey fans out there, that are very young and just
young. Okay, Rey. Yeah, true.
She's the bestest ever.
But with He-Man, it's hard to find somebody under 35. 35 is even young for He-Man. Like, over 35, almost all the fan base is over 35, and more like over 40. But so that's a little of the background, and of course the original toys. I went to New York Comic-Con back in, I want to say it was like 2013, I think, something like that. And I went to one of the toy little depots in the convention. This guy was selling, vintage toys. I said, "Do you have any Masters of the Universe, original Masters of the Universe?" He said, "What are you, crazy? I don't want those things stolen, blah, blah, blah. They always get stolen." I was like, "They get stolen?" And then I started looking up the prices. These things are ludicrous. Like, if you have the original Eternia set which was like from the very last series. It wasn't popular. Like the last series in '87 was when they started losing money. Yeah. But those are the most expensive ones now because they didn't sell a lot of them. Yeah. So like the Eternia playset was this huge, like $100 playset. It was supposed to connect Castle Grayskull to Snake Mountain with this, like you could put it all together. Right. And that thing goes for $4,000 now. So like these toys, and then some of the figures are very expensive too. You can find some up in the $1,000 range.
I mean, just have you seen some of these things being sold lately? Like, what was it? An unopened original Zelda NES game, $800,000.
Oh my goodness! Wow, in the box.
In the box, original.
Yeah. Well, one thing, and we talked about this. I talked about this in the last episode with reference to the comic book and the CD. Is that collecting has come back in a big way. Not just collectibles that were already popular, but even things that have gone the way of the dodo. Just real quick, baseball cards are finally worth money again. Like they went from being that thing you stick in the table, like the rickety leg, you put a pack of tops from '86 down there. Now those are worth money, for the first time in a really long time.
So you mean I got to go into my closet and dig out my baseball?
You do. You really do. Because, and this is new.
I've been waiting to get rid of them.
You really should. Now is the time. All because in the pandemic, this is the time because people are actually really seeking this stuff out. Even Marvel cards, which were worthless for the longest time. Since the 90s, they've been worthless. Those are like very valuable now. Like if you have a full set, they're like really like worth a lot of money now. They've gone.
I got some of the. Can I sell the old? What are they? Pogs or whatever they were.
I haven't heard anything about Pogs being bad. Pogs are still worthless. Still
got a handful of those things.
Pogs are still worthless.
Oh man.
But your cards, that's something. And then the Masters of the Universe, they've just skyrocketed. Especially if you have one in a box. It's crazy. It's crazy. So getting to 2021. Really, 2020, Kevin Smith had announced he's doing a He-Man show for Netflix.
I think even before that, like
it might
2019, 2018.
Yeah, maybe.
It's been for a while.
It's been a while. We've been waiting for this. And fans of the 2000X show, especially because the diehards were really into that 2000X show. They were really into that. And I urge you to go back and check it.
I'm pretty sure that's the one that I've watched one in the last like 5-6 years that I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. So if you're saying that the Korean one wasn't so good and this one was, I feel like then I watched that one.
Okay, yeah. They were really looking forward to this with that in mind. Now, I went and I watched it. I watched the first episode now. Just a little bit of background, too, with the show. Kevin Smith's words, this was going to be a spiritual sequel, or some kind of spiritual sequel to the Filmation cartoon. The Filmation cartoon being the cartoon that ran in the 80s, subsequent with the original toy line. That was a huge, huge hit. Every kid had the power. They all threw the sword in the air. That was like the thing. So this was supposed to be sort of a spiritual sequel to that moment in time. And with it was gonna, toys and all this stuff has come with it. Looking upon the credits and such, I watched the first episode one day and then I finished the rest of them the next day. So the first episode is written by Kevin Smith, and then he stays on as story editor for the rest of the episodes. Whatever that means. I mean, I guess he might have some final say, some veto power, maybe a suggestion here and there.
Well, I mean, he's the executive producer of the show, so everything goes through him. The story that was already put, I'm sure those last episodes, he was like, here's your story.
And he plotted
do what you do.
Yeah, he probably plotted it, but he wrote.
He tried to do what, never mind.
He wrote the first one, though.
I was going to bring Star Wars into it. My bad.
He wrote the first episode, though, and wrote the whole thing. And when I watched the first episode, something I will say is I loved the first episode. I really did. And I watched it with my girlfriend who knows nothing about He-Man. And she was just like, oh my God, what is this?
Every time I hear something about her, she knows nothing of any of the things that you cherish and love as a child. You're really going to have to indoctrinate her.
Comic books, He-Man and Star Wars.
Yeah, all that stuff. She knows
But P-Funk, she knows everything about. So, but yeah, so we watched that. And again, this is, by the time the toy line was over, she was 1. Yeah. So, it's not her fault. Like, her older brother watched He-Man and had the toys, But yeah, so, yeah, it's the era. It's more like a generational thing. But watched the first episode, really liked it. tons of fan service. Some people hate that. I like it. Like, I know what it is. I know that they're doing it for me and others like me. I don't look at it as necessarily brown nosing. I like when they give the fan service. Some of it is funny fan service though too. Like at the beginning, somebody said, the Queen says to Teela, "Oh, Teela, you look so beautiful, like a warrior princess." And the joke of that is, the Easter egg of that is, this is all spoilers. The Easter egg of that is the toy of Teela when it came out. It said on the top, like every one of them had a description right on the top of the toy, and it said, hers said warrior princess. And the original...
See, I went to Xena.
Okay,
I was like, that's some Xena Easter egg.
Way before Xena, they had her listed as warrior princess. And the whole idea was, originally, and it didn't stick with this once they did the cartoon, you could make her two different people. So originally, she was supposed to be the princess who's like the sorceress, before they made a sorceress toy, who gave He-Man the power of Grayskull and all that stuff. And she was supposed to be this warrior. And you could take off the tooling was the headdress, and when you put the headdress on it, like the snake headdress, she's the princess or whatever. And when you take that off and have the whatever, she's the warrior. You know, so like she's supposed to actually be two different people. They're like, we don't need to make two girls. Let's just make this girl both girls. And that's how it's a boys' line anyway. Let's just make it
kind of follows like He-Man himself, Adams, you know, where he's the prince and then he's actually He-Man.
Except
then you have the sorceress and she's a princess.
Except
and a warrior. She's like a triple.
Except that's a secret identity.
Right.
She was two different characters. The toy was two totally different characters.
She didn't even know she was the other character?
Yes, it's not the same person. It's not the same person. It's two totally different people in the original comic book story.
But you can just dress them up.
You just dress them up.
You talk about toys being expensive. That one sounds like that would be, you know, because you're getting 2 for 1.
2 for 1, yeah. So that was the tooling was involved in that. But to make the joke, they were like, you look like a warrior princess. They put, you know, the description. There was a bunch of stuff like that in the first episode that I clung to, and you know that's Kevin Smith just all day, just like riffing on different. And I liked how they were like the, what do they call it, the fourth wall, fifth wall, what is that, with like they're sort of aware of themselves, kind of
little Deadpool action going on.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that almost, where it was like they're talking about the old cartoon and how sometimes things were goofy and cheesy and like, well, yeah, that was supposed to be like, you know, it was cool. I kind of like how they touched on that stuff. The series goes on and it focuses on Teela. All the rest of the episodes focus mostly on Teela. Now this is where the diehard fans got really mad, and
I'll get into the conversation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I want you. I'm
gonna be on that side of the fence.
Well, because I'm gonna ask you about that because it's funny.
Truly blatant lies that happened before this show from Kevin Smith that alienated audience and have pushed people to where they are with this show, and it's directly his fault.
So I agree with some of that. I agree that it's his doing and his, you know, but like I, as a fan of He-Man, of Masters of the Universe in general, I'll take anything Masters of the Universe in this world of Masters of the Universe. As long as he's not in space or like it was in the movie, like I'll take it. I'll take Eternia, give me Eternia, give me Skelegod, give me all that.
Since we're already there, that's cool. Yeah. And I'm 100% with you on that.
Yeah.
Like, because what Netflix is doing with this is they're making a universe. This isn't just, we're making one He-Man show and that's going to be it. No, they're going to make a Teela show. They're going to make another She-Ra show. They're going to make a Man-at-Arms show, like an origin story. They're going to make this whole thing. So if you're going to do that, why would you start with the Teela show?
Well, that's an interesting point.
Because, I mean, literally, not the most popular character. We're all coming back for He-Man.
Right.
I will say, though, like you said on the title, it doesn't say He-Man's and the Masters of the Universe. It just says Masters of the Universe Revelation.
Right.
So that's a fair point to argue against me. But if you're going to launch a whole universe of diehard fans like you just spent the last 10 minutes talking about, 40-something-year-olds that have grown up with this, you don't launch it with the Teela show. And you sure as heck don't lie about it.
Right. Now, see,
you don't come out and say that it's not going to be the Teela show and then make the Teela show.
Right.
Because now you've pissed off everybody and no one wants to watch part 2.
Now, I went back and you know how I am about...
and then you make a thing, a making of thing, and you're like, we killed him twice!
I know.
And you're so excited about it.
I know.
You're not winning anybody over with any of this.
You know how I am with trailers and teasers.
Yeah, you don't watch them.
I don't. Yeah. So
I love ruining stuff.
The only thing I knew is Kevin Smith had a He-Man, a Master of the Universe show. That's all I knew, and that it was coming out. I hadn't read too much beyond that. Now, when I saw it, the only other thing I had seen was that they talked about spiritual successor to the Filmation show. And
did you get to watch that before the spiritual, whatever the previous show was that you were talking about? Did you get to watch that before this new one?
What, the Filmation show?
Yeah.
I watched a few of them, yeah.
Does it feel like a spiritual successor?
It does, because it's not a spiritual successor to the 2000X line, and it's not a spiritual successor to the space one, and it's definitely not a spiritual successor to the movie. Right. So if it's a successor to anything, it's a successor to the Filmation, because with the exception of Roboto, who in the new one they say Man-at-Arms made him, in the old one he came from space. Other than that, it's all the relationships are the same. All of the character relationships are the same. Locations, where they left them at the end, sort of, they're all there. Yeah, that all is the same. But because I didn't watch all that stuff, I wasn't like, oh, I'm so mad, they lied to me. And then later I saw all the backlash, and I yearned to find out what was making people mad. Now, one part of me was like, oh, maybe it's because they're focusing so much on Tila, and I think that might have been the thing.
That's the main thing.
The main thing.
You literally made the all-girl show.
Yeah.
You killed all the toxic white males.
Right.
Don't forget that. You killed all the toxic white males.
Well, not King Randor, Man-at-Arms, they're all around.
Oh, they're all around, relegated to side characters that pop up for little promos. So you don't forget about the toxic white male. You got to have something to springboard off. Well, so you got to bring this white dude in here and just crush him.
Okay, well, because Triclops is still there. He's white.
I don't even know who that is.
Triclops. He got the 3 eyes. He's one of Skeletor's main guys. He's the one. You watched it, right?
Yeah,
you watched
the whole season? He's the one that started
the cult.
Yeah,
I love that story.
God, he's ridiculous.
That was amazing.
Now,
and I like how
I do want to point something out before we get into this, because I think a lot of people are going to think that I hate this show.
Okay.
I think it's a great show.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the animation is
so
tremendous.
Good. Tremendous.
And you got to that's the Castlevania crew.
Yeah.
That did that, and if you know anything about the Castlevania Netflix series, that animation is killer.
Yeah.
So I mean, all the props in the world. And if this story was labeled as a number 3 story, like you did He-Man, and then you did the Tila show like this, and it's a side story where Adam gets murked, and then we gotta save him, or get the that's fine. You don't start with this show.
Well, here's the thing about that. I don't necessarily agree with that, and the only reason I say that is because of this.
You waited 20 years to see He-Man die?
I understand that.
Twice?
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is and I know this isn't the best example, but to use Star Wars as an example, their first endeavor, probably their most successful endeavor under the Disney aegis, is Mandalorian, right? It's probably the most successful you don't think Mandalorian's the most successful endeavor under Disney?
No, the most moneymaker was The Force Awakens.
Oh, but I mean TV.
Oh, TV, yeah.
It's their big success. I'm talking about television.
They have nothing else.
Yeah, well, they got the cartoons and stuff.
That's not adults, though. You know what I mean? That's not driven towards their full audience.
Right,
it's driven towards a portion of their audience.
But still, just to give an idea, that's their first, this is what we're doing. It doesn't relate to any of the core. It's all satellite.
That's all fine.
Right. And this, in the same way, doesn't necessarily relate to the core. It's a little bit more the side characters getting their push-ups.
That's why you had movies that dealt with the core while this show was going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you had the core, you had Palpatine, you had all these different things going on. You had the True Star, you had Harrison Ford back, you had Wedge, you got your boy back.
Yeah, I know.
You got Wedge back, Right. So you started with other things. Then you did this nice pocket of a side story.
But it's a show, not a movie. I mean, separate from the movie.
You already have these things going.
Yeah, okay.
That put you in this universe. You already know where this universe stands, where you're at, what you're doing.
Well, much in the
same way. Here you know nothing,
but
they just pop you back in here to the Tealish.
Okay, true, but much in the same way, Star Wars bread and butter is movies. He-Man's bread and butter is toys.
Yeah.
And so
they made one movie and it was atrocious.
It was terrible. All this time, they've been releasing toys. That's one thing a lot of people don't realize. And I want to get to that in a minute, too, because, oh, my goodness, the toys are so good. They're so good. And unlike the 2000X line, which was good but hard to find, these ones, they've done these Target exclusives, special one-off things that are only sold in like certain, and they have been so, and they focus on the bread and butter, the fan service, the He-Man centric part of it. To me, I don't care where they start with the cartoon, as long as there's some kind of cartoon going on that springboards us into this world. Like you said, they're creating a universe. And I have to say to get to your thing about the animation, there's one scene where Man-at-Arms is running when he was fighting those little tank spider things. Looks so amazing, that one scene. And it's funny because some people were like, "Oh, look, too 90s." I'm like, it's not
That's
computer.
So
it's drawn. That's what's so good about it. It's like
looks 90s,
right?
But it gives you 2021.
Yeah,
you know, you have all the feel of the original He-Man show in the artwork.
And there's pencil. I mean, there's real penciling going on like the anime guys do. There's real, I don't know, penciling, but you know what I mean. There's real artwork going on. It's not just computer.
Right.
You know, it's in there, but
the art was really amazing.
Really fantastic.
I enjoyed it.
And human created. You know what I mean? Like, it's organic. It's you know, which I look for. But
it didn't have the way some like anime goes with like the CGI and stuff like that. And you're like, oh well, this was drawn and then this is CGI and then this is back to
what's
and
back
it looks
and
terrible.
Forth. Yeah, especially
where
the early
picked its style, stayed with it, and crushed it the whole way. There was never a part where you're like, ew, that animation looks bad, you know,
or like, different, like you said.
Yeah.
You don't
that
want
must be a new drawer or something, you know?
Right.
Like when I watch my Naruto series, you know, like somebody right in the middle of 133, you know, episode or whatever is like a completely different guy, and the face looks all weird. They're like really soft now, you know, instead of having hard lines. It's like
Titan season to season.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, huge differences. The consistency was good. Now I want to say my negatives were by episode 3 or 4 through 2-3, I was getting to me it was slowing down the pace, because I was less invested in I wasn't fully convinced about Tila being so mad that she wasn't told.
Thank you.
She wasn't told about the
He-Man. I can't stand this in Hollywood. This isn't Kevin Smith. This isn't any of them. This is all of them.
Yeah, being
Stop
mad
with the tropes, dude. Like, it's just so freaking annoying. She's like hugging on Adam. I love you. Thank you so much for being my bestest friend in the whole world. And literally, she finds out one little lie. And I hate you all.
Yeah,
I'm out of here. You're not my dad. You're not my brother.
You're not my dad. Like, I mean, and you know, that's the funny thing. What did he, like, okay, because he helped keep the secret or whatever. But the one thing I like about that is that they're drawing on plot lines from the cartoon that kind of don't make sense. But the thing I don't like about it is how hard they stuck with it. And then
till the very end.
All of
the last second, literally, she's still hating on him.
And I wasn't reading teasers and trailer stuff like I said before,
and she's still like, I hate you.
I know.
Like, what?
But like, I wasn't reading teasers, trailers, and reviews till after I watched all of it. Yeah. And in the teasers, trailers, and reviews, they talk about Smith. Smith is really good at messy grief. They used that terminology, messy grief, a few times. Like a few writers used it. I was like, messy grief, and they pointed to things like Chasing Amy and things like that. But to me, that's not like messy grief. This is a cartoon. It's about a toy. Like, what are you talking about? Speaking of heaven, the use of like Preternia as heaven and Subternia as hell. Yeah. That's okay. I mean, using the terminology heaven and hell was a little weird for me, but I think they could have just done that without even saying heaven and hell. It's almost like,
I love that part of the arc though, where they go and show you the previous hero or champions and everything. You get a little bit of dude. Could you imagine a Grayskull origin story?
Well, okay, now let me get to that in a second.
I mean,
the people who know the 2000X line and the people who know the original Masters of the Universe line know a couple things about these guys. Now, King Grayskull is a huge part of the He-Man arc. Yeah, he's been around forever. He's the
original. He's the OG.
Yeah. And then Hero is a big deal too.
The one that put the swords back together? Or
he's the one who has like the big H with like the golden breastplate and like the brown hair with the little like bandana thing around.
He was the one that looked way more like Conan, because there's one that looked like Conan.
No, So yeah, and I'll get to those two.
Like 5 of them.
The two kind of side ones, Wondar and I forget what the Conan looking one, some other name. The Conan looking one is literally the character sketch for He-Man when they first brought it to Mattel. That's what the original He-Man. He had the horns, the whatever, they were trying to make him after a Frank Frazetta type of Conan character. Wondar is the Wonder Bread He-Man. They changed it to Wondar recently in the 2000X thing to kind of make it coincide with. But that was the He-Man they sold with the Wonder Bread. You send the Wonder Bread proofs of purchase back, and you get this brunette He-Man with the black. Instead, the black. It's Zodak's breastplate, but colored black. Those two were kind of thrown in like, hey, look what we did. Hey, we got those guys. They went all the fans. Oh my God, it's so and so. Hero is actually a lot more important to the original line. Now, Hero, in 87, the line went kaput. But in 88, they had a whole new plan for this thing called something of Grayskull, the future of Grayskull, some kind of thing, where He-Man was going to not die, but kind of take a lesser role. And they were going to bring forth this new guy named Hero, and he was a prior champion, or maybe the next champ. I can't remember. It was something about, because every era has a different champion of Grayskull. We already know who
the next champion is going to be.
Well, they talk, you're right. With the
we just watched 5 episodes or whatever of who the next champion is.
Of who they're trying to make it, yeah. But Hero was supposed to be the next level of the thing. And Hero, they had the packaging, and had like, the Snake Men were going to be a lot more kind of prominent in the Hero story. I think Hero was a prior Grayskull champion, and they were going to focus on him. He was going to come back, do some kind of thing. I forget the exact plot, but that was going to be the next story, the 88 line. That never ended up happening. They had monster giants. They only sold them in Italy. They were like giant figures, so like the regular figures are like this, the giants are like this. There was a good guy giant and a bad guy giant. They only sold them in Italy. They didn't sell in America. Those are also extremely valuable now. They sold that Eternia playset, the Preternia playset, whatever it was. So it was really cool seeing the use of I love all that canon stuff. Yeah. That stuff is so cool.
As it should be in there. That's what we want. You're building a whole universe. For all these stories, side stories, origin stories, you know, like conclusion stories. This is what you do.
And I like that it didn't have everybody. It didn't have Zodak. It didn't have, who was my man with the wings? It didn't have him. It didn't have, I mean, there was a lot of guys who were still waiting to see.
So many
Hordak, the Snake Men, the Evil Horde.
I got Beastman, so I was
got Beastman, yeah.
He's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah, I like Beastman.
Yeah, I'm a big Beastman.
You know, Beastman and Mossman are the same mold.
Okay.
When they made Mossman, they just took a Beastman mold and put the chemical to make the, whatever the stuff. Mossy, yeah.
Honestly, I'm good with it. Just to put it in a thing, but there's a part 2 to this series.
Yes.
And if this part 2 is still the Tila show,
right,
then you fail.
I think that it'll lose the majority of fans if they do. Yep. It'll lose the majority of fans.
If you don't bring He-Man into this and make a real story. I mean, not saying that wasn't a real story. And like I said, I love that story. If it's a side story, not the opening story.
Right.
This should have been chapter 4.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and it would have been great.
Yeah.
Because this is a typical Hollywood story that you see in this show.
Yeah.
You know, the hero dies. We go on a quest to get him back. You know, we get him back, but we also bring him back to the...
It's so ridiculous. If you
let's talk about voice cast.
Oh, wow. My God. Mark Hamill. They had two classic greats from Game of Thrones. Yeah. The girl who plays Cersei and one of the other guys, he plays Man-at-Arms. The Man-at-Arms and Evil Lynn are both Game of Thrones actors. Yeah. And Sarah Michelle Gellar is Tila. Yeah. Mark Hamill is Skeletor. We have a bunch. What a cast. Yeah, huge cast.
He really brought in the A game on that.
The original Skeletor is in it too.
Okay.
He plays... Who does he play? He's somebody. I forget. I'm trying to remember who he is. He's somebody big too. They had him come back, the original Skeletor guy, who's like really big at all the conventions, like the original cartoon Skeletor. Okay. But they didn't have him do Skeletor. He did either another villain or maybe Orko. I can't remember. I can't remember who it was that he did. But it was really cool to see that he was involved. And you know, overall, it's kind of funny. I think even though you and I have differing opinions, I think we both came out the same way. I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. You know, like that's how I felt. Good. I liked it.
Honestly, the people that I watch, you know me. I'm in a very select group in YouTube or whatever. I take stances on things.
Yeah.
And most of them I found were unnecessarily bitching about stuff.
Me too. I felt that way too.
Like the one scene that they really harped on that I was like, that's brilliant, is the one where they do the whole underwater thing. Skeletor's like, oh, let's paint the ship a nice gray, or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And then He-Man jumps up and he says the stupid line. He's like, oh, Skeletor, you're all wet.
Yeah.
Guess what? That's the way the 80s show was.
Exactly. That's what makes it a spiritual crap
that,
that's what makes it a spiritual successor.
Yeah. So when she said the whole thing, like they harped on the fact that Tila was like, oh yeah, well, he's got the comedy of a child or a teenager or something. I thought that was great.
They're legitimizing.
But they're freaking out about that.
That's stupid.
And that's a dumb one.
That is a dumb one.
Like there's a lot of dumb stuff that they're harping on that doesn't really apply.
Yeah.
If you really want to hit the crux of it, this shouldn't have been the first of this universe.
Yeah, maybe not. I think would have been cool if they started like really old, like pre-prequel. But I think that might have also thrown off fans who want to see He-Man immediately. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to it. But the way I felt,
we are here for He-Man.
Exactly.
Let's be real of the matter. Yeah. I mean, Tila was great. Everything she did was great. I don't know about making her the Man-at-Arms. One of my favorite lines. You know who the most who's to be feared the most in all of Eternia? Man-at-Arms.
Oh yeah.
Because that's what I always thought.
Yeah.
He's way more powerful. Maybe not powerful, but I would much rather see Adam in a war than Man-at-Arms. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I like that they addressed that in this show. Like he's actually the power behind everything.
I think somewhere, maybe it might have been the mini comics, or might even have been the DC comics, where somebody thought Man-at-Arms was He-Man, because they never knew his secret identity or whatever. But the overall it was good. My biggest problem is with
made what's his face, the wizard. They made him cool for once.
Who Orko?
Is that his name?
Orko. Yeah, the little guy.
They
comedy.
killed him off, but yeah. I mean, he was finally dope.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, because he was always useless.
Yeah,
he was always
annoying.
a waste. Yeah.
Like, so this was cool that you made him an actual cool character.
Yeah, that's true. I think in the end, like my biggest problem has been with the pundits, and like not necessarily the ones who don't like it or like it, but the ones who cater to either side. Yeah. So like the Spectre Creative guy, who I really like his little podcast because he talks about like how the toys were made and things like that. He did a review like right when it came out. He was like, I liked it. It was good. It was a good story. I like how they did this. They did that. They touched on this. They talked about that. Like he was digging it, because he's a hardcore fanboy.
And it's a good story.
All these people, it's terrible. What's wrong with you? You're an idiot. Don't you know what He-Man? You're supposed to know what He-Man is. How dare you like this? They came down on so hard. His next video. Yeah, I got a couple complaints, so I'm going to let you know how I really feel. Oh, yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Like, bro, come on, man. Like, he basically said all the things that I liked about it the first time. You don't have to not like it just because people are, I think the pressure, one way or the other, is too much. You should either like it because you like it, or don't like it because you don't like it. Not because somebody else said you shouldn't like it.
You're my boy. You like that show. I hate this. I don't hate it, but I have a lot of issues with it.
Right.
I'm not changing because of you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Me
You're
too.
not changing because of me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I have a problem with those
that's
types
our society nowadays.
Exactly. So he felt like he's gonna lose followers. Yeah. I can't deal with that.
You actually probably gain more followers if people don't like you.
I know, because they want to hear what you say next. That's very true.
So they can get on there and comment from their basement.
And before we go on to the next subject, I just want to say I got for an anniversary present from my girlfriend. She got me 2 different toys from 2 different series. She got the He-Man, the Masters Universe Revelation He-Man. Okay. Which has got 30 points of articulation as opposed to the old 4, whatever it was, 4 points. Yeah. And it looks really nice. It looks just like the cartoon. It's crazy.
I don't even think we have 30 points of articulation in our body. On our real body,
So it's cool. It's really cool. But the one that really excited me that she got me is the Mattel line. Now, Mattel doesn't have the rights to the Filmation stuff, and therefore they're not really doing the Revelation stuff. Mattel is doing He-Man Origins Rise of Evil, which is like just a series of toys that detail these characters before they were these characters, essentially, where they came from, who they are. the mini comics that came with the old toys back in the day touched on a lot of this stuff really deeply. And sometimes there was some like not quite consistent stuff, but by the end of the series, by like the 87 line, which I loved, but like it sold badly, but I loved the 87 line. The comic books were amazing. There was one called The Search for Keldor, and it was all about He-Man and them were looking for this dude Keldor, and the Snake Men were looking for him, and Skeletor was the only dude who knew where he was, but he wasn't going to tell anybody. And he was like, it's going to die with me. The secret's going to die with me. You find out in the 2000X cartoon, Keldor is Skeletor.
I knew that was coming.
Okay?
Like, that was such an easy flop point. You're telling me like 10 seconds worth of stuff, and I'm like, yeah.
But when I read the comic as a kid, by the way, drawn by Bruce Timm.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know Keldor was the Batman cartoon guy. Yeah, the guy who I didn't know Keldor was Skeletor. You have a
Batman shirt on today.
I know. I was trying. Keldor. I didn't know Keldor.
I guess.
Yeah, I didn't know Keldor was Skeletor, and so the new toys deal with. So the new toy has, it's a 2-pack, and it's Keldor, with the blue skin Keldor, the regular human head, and then a Skeletor head that you can take off Keldor and put the Skeletor head on, change him into Skeletor. That's the tool.
I'm gonna drop a spoiler.
Okay.
You might want to cover your ears because I know you don't like spoilers.
What is it?
But they've already come out and said that Skeletor won't be a skeleton in the part 2.
Oh, yeah. Well, so
you talking all this, I'm starting to wonder, are they going to do a Keldor?
Maybe, but it might also be Skelegod, who he just turned into when he got the power. He
had
the power.
But he'd still be a skeleton, right?
Skull head, but not the body.
Yeah, see, he's not going to have any of that.
Yeah, okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be Keldor again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So spoiler alert.
Yeah, and the Keldor action figure looks so cool. He looks just like the one in the old cartoon. And
I remember the name. I don't remember what he looks like.
Yeah, he's got like a Fu Manchu, I think, and nice. Like black hair and blue skin like their body, and
okay.
Yeah, blue skin.
I think I remember this guy.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna look.
So then the next with him is Cronus. And Cronus is Trap Jaw before he got the Trap Jaw. And like Skeletor did like an Emperor to Darth Vader type of thing. Like he gave him the Trap Jaw and made him all messed up. And before that, he was another blue. There's a whole race in Masters of the Universe called the Gwars. And they're the blue-skinned race. Some are good, some are bad.
Great band.
Yeah, great band. Some are good, some are bad. Like Skeletor and Trap Jaw. But then there's also like that other guy who had the big circles in his chest. Remember him? He was a good guy. I forget what his name was.
There's so many characters.
So many. Because Mattel was like, we're making toys.
Yeah.
We're making toys.
Like at least 1,000 characters.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Like have backstories.
Yeah.
They're like real characters. Not like, oh, we just made this toy. Like,
right.
Like,
and so
he was in the cartoon.
This series focuses on that. Origins of the rise of evil. And they look so. I was like, I kept them in the box. I'm looking at this box. I couldn't stop. It was like it was a book. I was just like, wow, this is so good.
Well, this is where I hope they go with this stuff. Origins. I love origin stories.
Me too.
Me. I'm so about it. Give me an Evil Lynn origin story.
Yeah.
Like, because she's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, she's
like,
great. And they did great with her.
Great.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
Yeah, I like that she was kind of like in between,
Yeah.
She was very fluid, I guess.
And anybody who watches Game of Thrones, that's literally Cersei from Game of Thrones. Like, that's the girl she played, that the actress played. Okay. It's exactly the same. I still only watched one episode. I'm completely evil, but sometimes you guys are kind of feeling for me. But I'm so evil, but I'm, but I might be good. No, you know what? I'm gonna be evil. Like,
but no matter what, I'm sexy.
She exactly played that character on Game of Thrones too. So it was the perfect The casting was great, But once again, I think the toys win. The cartoon was interesting. It's got its good and bad. But the toys win. The toys win because that's what that brand is about.
And you can get rid of, I guess, in a wrap up here before we move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. You can totally make this first part really good.
Yeah.
If part 2
is good.
Yeah.
Now, is it all the same season?
Like this
That's
part
what I
2,
didn't understand. Is part 2 season 1?
I don't know how they're gonna do that.
Yeah, because I didn't
all
understand.
Weird with stuff.
Yeah, it was so weird for me. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I was starting to think that it was a movie. Like you were just gonna get a first movie and then a second movie, and then it was like, okay, this is a season. So generally when they call it part 2, it's part of season 1.
It threw me off when it ended on episode 5 because I thought there was gonna be like 21 of them.
Yeah.
Because if you follow
or at least 12, or something like that, which is kind of like a Netflix standard or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't do a bunch of 20 episode things, but a nice 12 episodes, which basically, if you do it, that's part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, and the 2000X line was like a bunch of episodes a season.
Yeah,
it was like a lot.
Well, back in the day, they just pumped that stuff out. Man.
Yeah.
Like, here, 300 episodes in a 365
right.
day year.
But that was back in 2000, 2001, when they did those,
I gotta go check that out.
They're so good.
I think I remember that.
They're so good. And that's where you find Keldor, is in the 2000X series. Okay. But yeah, so a good a good thing overall. Like I said, the toys win because it's about the toys. Now we're going to talk about something that's about the comic books, first and foremost. And that is the subsequent return of Milestone Media, as proposed by DC. It's so funny because I always forget it's always been DC. Yeah. But like when you mentioned it to me in a text, I was like, "What's DC's Milestone?" Like
I didn't say DC. I just put Milestone in.
Well, you said Milestone by DC, and I was sitting there like, what is that? Because I'd be thinking about things like we said, Masters of the Universe Revelation. Like it's just these kind of like androgynous kind of just like autonomous type of names. They're just like Revelation, Milestone. Like I always forget those things. Oh yeah, Milestone, Hardware, Static, all that kind of stuff.
Syndicate.
So yeah, Blood Syndicate. So let's talk about.
You literally bought me these comics for my birthday one year.
Yeah, that's right.
Milestone,
yeah.
Yes.
And so Milestone, just to give a little background, a subsidiary of DC, but completely autonomous on its own at the time when it first came out. Yeah. Later assimilated into DC, but a completely autonomous institution within the DC universe.
They were all writers and artists for DC
and Marvel.
Mostly DC
Mostly
at that
DC,
time.
yeah.
And they asked for their own thing.
Yeah.
And one of the few instances, DC allowed it.
Yeah, actually allowed it.
Yeah,
and I think
you do whatever you want, and we will fund you.
The only reason why I think they did is because they didn't want the same thing to happen to them that happened to Marvel with the Image founders, because that had just happened, and DC saw the writing on the wall. DC was already losing. They had come in third. They had been in third place.
At the same time.
I
never really put that together like that.
Oh, it's exactly why. It's exactly why. Because 91, you got the Image thing.
Makes a lot of sense.
They all leave. All of Marvel's top 10 books. Artists are gone. And then DC went from being number 2 to number 3 to their rival for the past 50, 60 years, and some new upstarts that just started like a couple months ago. Now they're number 3. So what are they going to do? Well, they're not going to shun their creatives. They need to give their creatives as much autonomy as they feel they corporately can, without losing them and without losing the shirt off their back. Yeah. So these guys were African American, and they decided to do Afrocentric creations, heroes, and
villains.
And
villains.
A
lot of their books are not
Universe.
just heroes. That's what's great about them. They were truly just all over the place with it.
Right.
Yeah, which was great.
And it had a run that is still lauded as a very powerful, great plot lines run where they touched on really serious
Literally the
subjects.
only reason I'm in the comic books.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't be in the comic books today. I wouldn't care. Well, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys about any of this stuff, except for Star Wars. I am always been a huge Star Wars fan. But Milestone is the only reason I got into comics. Everything from there, Wolverine and Hulk and all this stuff that traditionally people think about, I cared
nothing about. Yeah.
Like it didn't appeal to me. The edge, the grittiness.
Right.
It wasn't always the greatest story. Because, it's hard to write a story in a comic. You got a little bubble. You get to put 6 words in there to portray a whole thing, So, it wasn't always a clear, concise story. But, man, it just gripped me as a child. And, even to this day, I still pick up my Blood Syndicate and read it, front to back, all 26, or issues or whatever.
Right.
It's been in hiatus for 20 years.
Yeah.
Plus.
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah.
And it took the dying of the original people to bring it back. Really, at this point. Yeah,
the 4 original founders, Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Derek Dingle, and Michael Davis. Michael Davis I've met a few times. And Dwayne McDuffie sadly passed. He was kind of the Chris Claremont of that world. He was the writer.
He's everything.
Yeah, he was the guy who wrote all the stories.
Yeah, wrote it all. He came up with most of the ideas.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah,
he was the way they would look, everything. I think he's the one that pitched Milestone to DC.
Yes.
He's the GOAT.
But so they still, Dennis Cowan still very much involved. Now Reggie Hudlin came on board. Reggie Hudlin, Emmy Award winning, Emmy Award nominated, Oscar nominated film producer, director. Also had 2 award-winning runs on Black Panther with John Romita Jr. and Spider-Man. So he did massive award-winning runs on both those characters himself. So no stranger to comics.
He's got a wall of Eisners, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a buddy of mine, I've talked to him several times. A huge fan of George's. He was just at George's birthday party, and I was talking to him about my upcoming book. But I forgot to talk to him about Milestone because he was a big part of the relaunch of Milestone. He got with Jim Lee to kind of get this thing back out again as its own entity again within the DC universe. Now, since it folded, all those characters were assimilated into the DC universe for the most part, some more than others.
Yeah,
right?
Static, I mean,
got
think
his own
is
card.
a member of the Justice League.
Something like that, yeah.
He's been a member. He's not been a member, but he's technically part of the Justice League.
Okay, and
or at least the kid version of the Justice League.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Like he would be in that. Maybe I think that's what
Teen
it is.
Titans?
They put Black Lightning in Justice League, and they put Static down into maybe
Teen Titans. Yeah,
something like that.
But now they're bringing back the actual books. So May was the release of the first one.
I think
May 25th.
June.
Oh, June. I think it was originally supposed to be May. And I think it got pushed back.
It got pushed back 20 times.
Like all comics.
Like I've been doing for years.
Yeah. No, I know.
One of the reasons that I don't like this guy at our local comic book store is because I've gotten in numerous arguments with him about it. It's like, no, DC has put this out right now that it's going to be here this month right now. And he's like, no. So,
because a lot of times, I mean, with all the companies, with Marvel, Image, and DC, books get pushed back.
Always.
It happens all the time. Yeah. Even with my...
but this was by, like, years.
No, I know. Yeah.
It's one thing if, like, we don't have it out this month. It'll be out next month. We'll have 2 parts, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. This is, like, years.
Yeah.
And you keep announcing it.
Right.
And announcing it. And it's like, dude, just do it.
Yeah.
You let them die. The 2 original writers, Dwayne McDuffie and the other guy, I can't think about his name right now, from Static, dead.
Right.
John Paul Leon, dead. He was the artist for the original Static. Like,
okay.
I mean, what are we waiting for here? Let's get this going.
Right.
And John Paul Leon died May.
Okay.
This year.
Wow.
Yikes.
And it was probably a big part of the relaunch as it was coming.
It's huge. I would think so. You would think.
Yeah.
But then again, there was also one of those 4 people that you mentioned's wives sued DC heavily because they cut him out of certain things. I don't know the full story, so I don't want to get into it, but
interesting.
So he might not even have been a part of it.
Right.
They might have taken the original because looking at the comics, I don't see an original artist or an original writer or anything. These are all new people that I'm like, who are these people?
Well, out of the 4 original founders, only 2 of them were creatives. Well, no, 3 of them were creatives, but 2 of them were involved heavily in the books. Right. So McDuffie wrote a lot of them, and Dennis Cowan was the artist on Hardware, helped create Hardware. Derek
comes out in August.
Yes, okay.
Well, now we're in August, but end of August, Hardware comes back out, and you said that he's doing it again?
That I don't know because I think Bill Sienkiewicz is doing it. And Bill Sienkiewicz, for those who don't know, is the guy who really put New Mutants on the map. Made it a good book from being kind of like a what is this to like a really good book. Introduced Warlock. All the stories you see in the Legion TV show, a lot of that is Bill Sienkiewicz's stuff, or at least his artwork coming to life.
I would love to see what he's going to do with Hardware.
Me too.
I've already seen the first cover, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, yep.
And Hardware's such a dope character with all the things that come out of it, all the hardware.
Yeah. No, I was super excited when I saw his name attached because I love Bill Sienkiewicz is in my top 10 favorite artists of all time.
And that's one reason why you could keep him, like how I was discussing with you, and they can't keep Blood Syndicate. He's a scientist, so he could be at that protest.
Right. So talk about the protest then. So talk about the Blood Syndicate and what do you not like about how Milestone is doing? Okay,
so the original origin story of it was
of Blood Syndicate.
It's called the Dakotaverse.
Right.
So what Milestone is the Dakotaverse.
It's
a city that's pretty much New York City or outside of New York City that's called Dakota. Mm-hmm. And in the original series, the way it ran was it was overrun with gangs. They had the police had blown up the bridges So basically, it's New Jersey and New York. All right. So Dakota is New Jersey, and New York's police department's like, we don't like these people anymore. These poor people, or whatever. These disenfranchised. So they blow up the bridges. They blow up the Manhattan Bridge. All these bridges connecting Jersey over to New York or whatever.
Right.
So now you guys are on your own.
It's like resegregation, sort of.
Basically.
Class segregation, maybe.
Yeah. And so all the gangs who are the most powerful and influential in Dakota get together. What are we going to do about this? Are we going to continue to fight? Are we going to sell more crack? I mean, it's literally a 90s thing. Like there's AIDS, there's all these different things going on in it.
Yeah.
And the government realizes this and deploys an experimental tear gas that turns everybody that was at this function, or whatever you want to call it, into soups or villains.
Right.
However you want to describe them. In the news story, I read the first static last night. Basically, they changed that to... It is a bunch of college students protesting the government and the treatment of the government to the college students. Like how they're
in Dakota still?
Yeah, it's still in Dakota, which it was cool. Okay. They also turned static. Like now he comes from a pretty affluent family,
Whereas before he was really poor, right?
Pretty poor. Yeah. He still had a mom. I don't know if his dad was there.
Like single mom thing.
Yeah, exactly. Now he's a streamer. Okay. He's got a triple monitor stand. He's got the mic right here. He's talking about the indignities of the world and everything on his stream. Giving gossip and stuff like that. And he's a little rich kid now.
He's podcasting.
Yeah. and that was the original thing that I hated when the guy that you're talking about that came in and did the rebirth of it and everything. That's what I hated about it. They took what was great, this edgy, gritty, urban comic that appealed to a lot of us.
Right.
And turned Static, which is Virgil Hawkins, into Peter Parker.
Right.
Now he's just the Black Peter Parker.
Right.
And that's literally all he is.
He's Miles
DC's
Morales.
Version of
He's Miles Morales.
No, I don't.
He's not even Miles Morales.
No, because Peter Parker and Miles are two different
Right.
things. Okay. I don't want to... If I say what I say, I'm going to sound like an asshole.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm going to leave that there.
Okay.
But so they literally, and that's what Static Shock is. There's two different things. There's Static, which is the original.
Right.
And then there's Static Shock.
Which is the show.
Which is like the kiddie. No, they made comics.
No, I know, but the show they called it Static Shock.
Yeah, the show was Static Shock too. And it's just this kiddie, watered down version of it. And the first episode, or first issue of this comic, the new rebirth that came out last month in July, it looks like it's in between.
Okay.
So I like that.
Okay.
I like the very first comic, or God, why do I keep saying comic? It's just like ingrained. The very first cover has almost the exact same cover as the original Static. He's got the Malcolm X hat on. He's got the lightning flowing around him.
Jumping
and then the
out.
second cover has his Static Shock outfit where he has the hoodie.
Okay, it's cool.
He's got the dreadlocks.
They're trying to draw on all of them.
The
so origins.
It can be cool. Mm-hmm. It can be cool. But
what are you looking forward to the most from this run?
I'm already into Static.
Static.
My two big ones were Blood Syndicate. That's what got me into comics, and Static.
Is there a Blood Syndicate though, or is it just the college student thing?
Yeah. So with this rewriting, Blood Syndicate was a gang.
I know, but is there going to be a book, Blood Syndicate? No book?
No. The way they rewrote all this, it's just going to be about college stuff. And it's just really on point to what's going on in today's society.
Okay.
Minus the tear gas thing or whatever. But, people rioting, people protesting, people doing this stuff. The government's an evil organization, keeping all of us down. If you're not part of the elite, you're not part of anything type of deal. Which, it's spot on. But
yeah.
It's something that all media, from music to art to books to everything, is forgetting. You're an escape.
Right. Escapism, yeah. It's
the
key.
whole reason I take part in any of this is for escape.
Right, sure. It's fantasy.
I'm sick of the bombardment of our daily lives.
Right,
of what's
reality.
going on.
Sure.
So when I open up the comic, and the first page is literally, the only thing they didn't do was put a picture of Trump in one of the panels. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was like, okay, guys, I don't want to be a part of this. And it turned me off in the first 5 pages. And then luckily I started getting into the story and dropped that. And I was like, all right, cool, here we go.
One big thing I noticed is difference from the 90s was when Milestone, even though Milestone was always a part of the DC universe, I think DC afforded them some autonomy where they had their own studio and they had their own full staff. There was like 20, 30, maybe more people working on those books.
And they could do whatever they want. DC was never gonna tell him no.
Now it's like DC saying, "Hey guys, it's Milestone."
It's Milestone.
But DC was never standing up in front of it.
Yeah, no.
They were always kind of behind it, like we have this thing.
If this fails, we don't really want to be a part of it.
Yeah, we're trying to behave. We're trying to behave, but now DC is like, we're introducing you to the new It's almost like McDonald's presents. Like
it's a little
more corporate
signaling.
It's a little what?
A little virtue signaling by DC.
Yeah, I think so.
They're trying to jump on a bandwagon right now.
Right.
The whole comic, you can kind of tell, is geared towards that.
Well, it makes sense because DC
because I got Static back.
Yeah.
And he's one of my all-time favorite characters, and I will continue to buy this book no matter how woke it is.
Well, I think
because I want it to succeed.
It probably makes sense that they've been trying anything because there was a lot of talk in January and February. DC wasn't going to make it through the year. The comics. I mean, that wasn't going to make it through the year. Like it wasn't going to make.
In a final point, are comics going to make it?
Well, comics in general are always going to make it.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Because I'm starting to doubt it.
No, I'm not. Because at the end of the day,
let me suggest to all of our listeners out there: go ahead and buy "I Am Not Starfire."
What is that?
I'm not even going to go into that.
Okay.
Just buy "I Am Not Starfire."
I've never heard of that. But
you know what Starfire is?
No.
Titans.
I'm not really big into DC, so I don't know. I know Batman.
Well, she's part of that.
Is she part of Teen Titans?
Yeah, she's the alien with the red hair.
With the orangish hair. Yeah. Okay, I know her from the cartoon.
Starfire.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a new book, and basically Starfire and Dick Grayson and Nightwing have a child, and it's about their fat gothic child that just...
Oh, yeah, no, I did hear about this. Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why they said, like, DC wasn't going to survive, and they're having all this trouble. But, even when, comics is a kind of thing, it's been around since the 19th century. It's always going to survive in some form. Be it digital, be it indie. There have been periods when the corporate things have crumbled completely and the indies have risen up and become the new corporate. And
well, you know who's winning now, right?
Who?
By, like, tenfold.
Fantagraphics.
Anime.
Oh, anime. Well,
and manga. Manga outsells.
Well, yeah, manga's, but it's been outselling. Manga outsells movies. Manga outsells.
But not in America.
Well, maybe
now
not.
It's outselling in America. By like tenfold.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you go to a bookstore, the manga section it dwarfs the other sections. It dwarfs fantasy. It dwarfs graphic novels. It dwarfs the sci-fi.
So what does that tell you?
Well,
is manga better than comics?
It is comics.
Exactly.
It's just a Japanese word for comics. It doesn't matter. Comics will survive. It's just it might not be the comics that we all know of, but comics always survive. Like that's the thing. Like the indie market, like I was say, Fantagraphics, which has been an indie company since the late 70s. Yeah. A lot of people were kind of like Fantagraphics, they're whatever, But nowadays they're selling like some of the best-selling books are coming from Fantagraphics. Or then like Image went from being like. Yeah, but being corporate but not corporate to being fully corporate but not corporate. Like, you know what I mean? There's all this kind of like gray area.
Yeah, but being the king of the small hill doesn't mean anything.
Well,
you're selling the best comic out right now, but our industry is nothing.
Well, you can't compare it to the 90s because in the 90s...
not the 90s. I'm comparing it to manga.
Yeah, but I'm just saying you can't compare comics in America to the 90s because at the end of the day,
it's a different age.
80% of the people that were buying them weren't reading them. It was all speculator. It was a speculator boom. That's all it was. It was the same thing that happened to baseball cards a decade before, and it was just speculator boom. But when we talk about, like, back then, if you sold 186,000 copies, your comic was a failure. Today, the top-selling book sells 112,000 copies.
I'm surprised it's even that much.
So that, and it's Batman, I think. So to give you an idea, like, that's how that stuff is going. But, like, I think it'll always survive as long as people are reading anything. Yeah. It'll survive.
But this industry is going down in a flaming pile.
The industry as we know it is having trouble. But that doesn't mean the industry as we will see it is going to be.
Oh, no, you know what I'm saying? Everything's circular.
Yeah, everything.
That's what life is, man. It's a big circle.
And I think that the whole reason why manga has been separate from American comics for so long, I think, has to do really with prejudice. Like all these people are like, it's not comics. No, it is comics. It's just because they read it backwards. It's still
has
comics.
No color.
Yeah, but I mean, all the black and white explosion of indie comics back in the 80s was all colorless. Like all Ninja Turtles.
I can't deal with that.
Ninja Turtles has no color.
I only like pictures of drawing. Like that's why I love Mark Silvestri because he's a straight pencil drawer and his straight pencils are amazing.
Those are black and white.
But I don't want to read his whole comic like that.
Well, if it's duotone...
He does that with the darkness a lot.
If it's duo shade or duotone, like the paper they were using in the 80s, I will read a black and white.
I mean, I'll read it, but I don't like it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And not all manga is black and white. And
they add color here and there, but
no, I mean, if you go to Japan,
95% of it is black and white.
But if you go to Japan, you can find tons of color manga, even in the drugstore.
But you know what that is, right? That is already released.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, and then they recolor it afterwards.
Yeah,
that's the way manga works.
Yeah,
You know, you rarely get an issue that just printed today,
right,
with color.
Unless they have real big viewers.
Even like Naruto and Bleach and all these were all black and white.
But those have bigger subscribers in America than they do in Japan. The biggest ones in Japan don't have American audiences. And so they can do all kinds of different stuff.
They
have studios with 8,000 artists. It's like there's no way they put this one name and it's like 8,000 people that do it. You know, it's a mega industry over there. Mega. And
they just had their biggest year last year.
Yeah. And, you know, in the top 10 biggest franchises of all time, there's several manga.
Well, I
mean, up there with Mickey Mouse and...
You know what number one is by a country mile, and it's not even close.
What is it?
Pokemon.
Oh, Pokemon. We talked about this. Yeah, Pokemon.
I mean, it dwarfs every other universe by like tenfold.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
I remember when we looked it up.
I think number 3 is Hello Kitty. Literally had nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a cartoon, doesn't have anything, just... backpacks and t-shirts.
Yeah, well,
and it's the 3rd highest grossing franchise of all time.
Well, a lot of that, the manga and the Hello Kitty, and we can talk about this next time. It has a lot to do with what these corporate companies are trying to do, but they're failing because they're somehow disenfranchising their male audiences. That at the end of the day, the biggest buying audience is female in the world. Yeah. And Hello Kitty and Pokemon is suspended by major female sales. Not all, but a lot.
Well,
especially Hello Kitty.
Got to be, 100% almost?
I mean, you'd be surprised.
95%?
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
There's bronies out there, so I guess there's some Hello Kitty dudes.
I've met dudes that are into Hello Kitty, and they're not even the people you think they are. Like, they're regular dudes who look like you and me. And they're hard. Isn't she so cute? Cute?
I mean, it's cute.
All right. But,
I'm not buying it. It's
cute. And Pokemon is probably one of those great examples of, like, probably a 50-50 or 60-40 type of, like, female and male is probably almost equal.
Yeah, it's just teenagers.
Selling. Preteens. Yeah. So, I think that a lot of these companies are trying to take advantage of that because of the overwhelming male audience, and that buys. They know that they can get both to buy. That'll be that much more money, but not at the disenfranchisement of their core. And that's where I think sometimes the problem.
That's where they're missing the point.
That's where the problem.
You can have both. If you watch, like, we go back to the Star Wars. Generally, there's 2 favorite characters in Star Wars.
Yeah.
One of them's a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, no one hates on Leia.
Right.
We all love her. She's a goddess.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's powerful. She's strong. She had a great story.
She's a warrior goddess. Right.
She's a warrior goddess. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you do stories like that, we'll all support.
Right.
You don't have to do stories where one side disparages another.
Right, sure.
And that's what Hollywood is right now, which is unfortunate. It's not what we need in today's society. We need unity.
Right.
You know, from the deepest levels.
Yeah.
All of us together.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, like, and I want to see that reflected in my entertainment.
Yeah, sure.
Which I'm not getting now.
Right. So maybe next time we can touch on some more of this stuff, but so that was in a nutshell a little bit of the Milestone.
Please go out and support the new Milestone. They have hardware. They've got the new Icon and Rocket. They got Static, and then I think they're introducing some of the lesser known characters from the Dakotaverse or whatever. They're on sale right now at your local comic book shop. This is actually a great cause to get behind. This is a small company inside of a larger company trying to make it.
Right.
And you're helping out people that normally don't get the opportunities afforded to them that other people do.
Right.
So if you have the means, I know it's been a tough last couple of years, but go out and support Milestone. They're a great company, and you'll get some great stories out of it.
Right, exactly. And if you like what you listen to and watch here, and you like comic books, I got my new comic book out. It's called Sons of the Sun.
Amazing artwork. I love the artwork in number 2.
Steve Grezik, the artist, and selling this for $25. You can get it from all my pay sites, and these are selling very, very fast. So,
is this your necklace? Is that the necklace?
Yeah, you like that? Yeah, it's the out of Koch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That looks good.
And it's the sun, because that's the sun. That's the symbol for the sun, and he comes from a volcano, so he's like Sons of the Sun and the whole thing.
Oh, dope.
Issue 2, and it's very limited, so get it before they're gone. They're almost gone, so check it out. But Travis, thank you.
Thank you for having
me. For coming back.
Really
I really appreciate it. We'll get back together and do some more. Yeah. If they decide to do anything interesting with Star Wars, we'll do another Sith and Synth.
There's a lot of stuff coming out.
Otherwise, we're gonna probably do some more comic book stuff or something else. But and maybe part 2 of He-Man.
Have you been getting in The Witcher?
Witcher?
Yeah.
No. I watched the first episode.
You gotta watch the whole thing.
I didn't like the first episode.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, you think it's good?
You know how many series have crappy first episodes?
That's my problem. That has been my problem every time. That was my problem with... What was the other one you tried to get me to watch? Daredevil? Was Daredevil a show?
Yeah.
Daredevil was one that had trouble with the first episode.
Daredevil's a slow burn.
Yeah.
Like, that's just something. It's a great show, but it's really slow and a lot because they do a lot of lawyer stuff. It's like watching Law and Order.
Yeah, like as zany and sometimes cheesy as Black Lightning is, the first episode kept me, and that's the only reason I watched all of them. Like, if the first episode is good, I'll stay.
Once I started focusing on Homeboy, I was like, "This is stupid."
Who's Homeboy?
What was his name? Painkiller.
Oh, Painkiller, yeah.
And then they're gonna make a Painkiller show.
They're gonna do a Painkiller show?
That's what they said.
Oh,
dude.
Wow.
And he sucks. I like the actor.
Yeah, the actor.
I thought he was good.
Yeah, he was
but
good.
Like the character was terrible.
Right. Yeah, he's okay.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
but we're gonna have to get back together and talk about all that.
Well, thank you for having me. I really.
Yeah, of course, Travis. Thank you for coming back. And you have been experiencing Danny on Everything. We are back. Danny on Everything. I want to thank Travis Thigpen, Carl Cerny, as always, for having me here at Moose Magnificat, Alcom in Tallahassee, Florida. We will be back next month with some brand new content for you guys. My name is Danny Bedrosian. You have been watching, listening to, experiencing Danny on Everything.
You're going tweeting like a bird. You're going tweeting like a bird in the sky. You're going tweeting like a bird. You're going tweeting like a bird in the sky.